Hey, and welcome everyone to our YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to learn how we can take our Amazon Honeycode applications and migrate them over to Caspio's low-code platform. If you didn't know, Amazon is shutting down Honeycode and have given their customers until February 29th to go ahead and potentially find a new solution, but they've also given access to export the data in Excel. So in this video, we're going to learn how we can take that Excel data from Honeycode, import it into Caspio, and begin developing all of our application interfaces. Let's have a look. All right, so here I am inside my Honeycode account, and what I'm going to do is export my event planner application. So I'm going to click on these three dots, and we can export the data in Excel format. So we'll hit the export button. It'll only take a few seconds to be able to download the file. Once you download the file, you're going to be able to see that on your local computer, and then you can unzip those files. And once you unzip it to your local drive, you're going to be able to import that into your Caspio account. So let's go to Caspio and see how we can import that. All right, so here I am inside my Caspio account. To begin, I'm going to click on Create App, and then we're going to import the data. As for my application name, I'm going to call this Simple Event Planner. But depending on your use case, you might have your own naming convention for your own applications, and then you want to locate the file that you downloaded from Honeycode. As you can see, I have two tables that I downloaded. Now, one thing that you could do ahead of time, if you wanted to, you can take both of these Excel files or however many you have downloaded, and you can merge them all together into a single workbook file in Excel inside data sheets. If you do that, then you only need to import one file rather than each one of these Excel files that we have. I'm going to import one at a time because that's how I downloaded the data from Honeycode, and I want you to see the steps as it is. So I'm going to select my event table. We're going to hit Next. Once the file is successfully uploaded, Caspio is going to take us inside the import wizard. So let's click Next. You'll be able to see your CSV file. It's a comma delimited file. We're going to hit Next. There's my event table. I'm going to use the action Create New because we're creating a new table in Caspio and we're importing that data for the very first time. Now, in the future, if you're making changes offline in your Excel file, you can also use Replace action to replace the data that you have in Caspio. You can append new data sets to your Caspio tables. You can update specific data records, and you can also update design of your table. I'll choose Create New, and I'm just going to change the name of my table to SCP, which stands for Simple Event Planner. I always like to use a prefix of my application name and just simply abbreviate that. TBL for table, and events because the table is going to contain event information. We're going to hit Next. Here you'll be able to see the sample data that you're importing. You can change the field name to something else if you'd like. You can choose what columns you want to import, and you can also change the data type before you import the file. I'll leave everything as is and click on Import. Should only take a few seconds. Once you see your imported successfully message, you can go directly inside a table, and now we can see all the data. You can click inside each cell to make changes if you'd like. If you wish to make changes to your field names, you can click on Table Design. You can change the field name to something else, you can add new fields, and you can also change the data type to something else if you'd like. Now, if you'd like to create some automation, to automate things in the backend on the table level, you can go to Triggered Actions, create a new trigger, and then you can run action on insert data, update data, or delete data from within a table, which also allows you to run different actions in completely different tables. So Caspio uses a Blockly framework to accomplish that, so if you wanted to, you could make changes to other tables when something else happens in a different table. Very useful, very beneficial for automation purposes. Now, to see the list of our tables, we're going to go back to our tables menu. And we should be able to see only one table because we only brought in the events. Now, let's see how quickly we can bring in the task table as well. So we click on Import Data, choose File, select the task table, click Next. And we're basically going to follow the same steps. Let's hit Next again. You'll be able to see a CSV file. We're going to hit Next. And be sure to choose the application name that you're importing the file into. So that's very important because before we created a new app, we gave it a name. Now we're importing a separate file. We want to make sure we select the right application that we want to bring the data into. That's my table. We're going to create a new table, and I'm just going to rename this to SCP, TBL, Tasks, click Next. Here's my sample data. I'll do a quick import. And once again, we can go inside that table to view the data. To go back out to the table menu, click on the tables, and we should now be able to see both tables from Honeycode imported into Caspio along with the data. Now, Caspio is a relational database, so if you wanted to, you could have unlimited number of tables, and you can link tables using primary keys and foreign keys to create one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-many relationship types. Now we want to ask ourselves a question. How do I build a form to be able to feed data into my events table? So to build these application interfaces for your application users, you're going to go to Data Pages. And to build the data page, we click on the button up here, and this is going to launch Caspio's point-and-click data page wizard. And this is what allows us to build applications 20 times faster than using traditional methods. If I wanted to, by default, my submission form is selected, so I can continue with the screen to build my form. I can also build an update form, password recovery, which allows application users to reset the password via email. We have different reports that we can create, from tabular, gallery, list, even pivot tables. Calendars are very helpful if you're building an appointment tracking system or event planning like we are today. We have charts for different KPIs and metrics. You can see we have a lot of different charts that we can create. Really, really helpful if you're building dashboards to be able to visualize your data. And finally, if you're a little bit more tech savvy, you can create HTML data pages for even more sophisticated and dynamic applications. Now, in my video today, we're going to build a simple submission form. We're going to hit next. And then we need to choose our data source. So when I submit my form, where do I want that data to go? I have two tables inside this application, and I want to submit my data into my events table. Let's give this data page a name, create a new event. As for the style, you can see that Caspio is going to give you some preloaded styles. Styles are all about the aesthetics, the look and feel of your forms and reports, what colors you want to have. Now, if your organization or your company has a unique color palette, you can also go to the styles object and you can fully modify the label colors, field colors, button colors. We even give you access to the CSS. So if you're a little bit more tech savvy, you can override even Caspio's default styles to your own style by injecting properties and values for different classes. I'm going to choose blue. And then for my localization, I'm going to choose English. Localization is all about regional settings. Here you can change the language of the form, date format, currency if you'd like. I'm going to stick with English and just simply hit next. Now it's asking me, what fields do you wish to use in this web form? You can move one field at a time, or you can move them all at once. Let's hit next. Once you reach the properties section, here you can select your fields on the left-hand side, and you can make modifications using the drop-down on the right-hand side. So for example, if I select my event field, I would like to make that field required, meaning the user has to input the event name before they can click submit. For my description field, I would like to choose text area, and you can see I can change my width and height accordingly. Text area is great for long text so that the end user can see what they're typing. Maybe my date field, I can also make that required and maybe have a calendar pop-up. If at any time you want to see what you've created, you can click on the preview button to see it in real time. So if I do that, and there's my form. So now I have my text field, I have my text area, and I also have my calendar pop-up. Let's continue making a few more modifications inside Caspio. Caspio's data page builder is very, very sophisticated. There's a lot of UI and UX that you can enable to make your forms pop and even be more dynamic if needed. So for example, I'm going to give you a couple of more things that you can enable here. So let's take a look at our status field. By default, it's a text field. I would like to turn that into a dropdown. Now, the better way to creating dropdowns is to have a lookup table that contains all of your statuses. But as you can see, I only have two tables inside this application. If I had a third table that contained those statuses, I will be able to link that table to my dropdown, which is a much more efficient way of building dropdowns. So if I don't have that table, I'm going to create custom values. So let's say we have new, we have pending, completed, and perhaps canceled. So those can be our status options. The next thing that I wanted to show you is the rules tab. The rules tab is also very powerful. It's for conditional logic. If you set a criteria on a field, you can do something else to a completely different field. So for example, if for rule 1, we set the criteria on the field name, let's say field name status equals to pending, and we hit OK, I would like to require a description field. But you can also see we can make fields disabled or we can hide fields altogether. Now let's see what we've created so far. I'm going to hit preview again. So there's my dropdown. You can see because the status is set to new, nothing happens to my text area. But if I choose pending, you will see in how my text area is now required for description. That means I have to fill something in before I can hit submit. The last thing I wanted to mention on the submission form, let me go back to the Elements tab, and I wanted to show you what we call HTML blocks. And you can insert as many HTML blocks as you want. But HTML blocks are great for creating headings and subheadings to divvy up the form so that you don't overwhelm the end user as they're filling it out. So say, for example, we create a heading here that says create a new event. I can highlight that text, I can make it bold, and maybe slightly bigger so it stands out. But this is where we get into low code with Caspio. And a lot of developers appreciate Caspio because you can inject industry standard languages such as HTML, CSS, JavaScript to make things even more dynamic. So if I wanted to have a completely custom heading above my form, I could go into the source button and I can code in my own HTML and CSS if needed. I'm just going to give you a quick example. If you're not technical, don't get overwhelmed. You can still use the toolbar to create, but if you just Google these things or use ChatGPT, you can create these headings very quickly without any or minimal effort whatsoever. So I'm going to delete this and I will just say div style equals, and let's just say background color of black. And let's add a color of our text to be white so we have a nice contrast, maybe padding around our label. We can say maybe 5 pixels top and bottom and 12 pixels left and right. And I'll also add a border radius around my background, maybe 5 pixels so we have a nice and round edge. And all I have to do now is add my label. So we'll just say create a new event. And I will close my div tag. Now, if I want to see what this looks like, what I just created and coded in, I will click on the source button again, and that's what it looks like. If I hit preview, which I will in just a second, but before I do that, I want to show you how easy it is to copy this heading and add it throughout your form. So if I go back to my source button and I copy what I just typed out, and let's say we go to the location field and we add another HTML block up above it, I will go into the source button, paste, and then you can see what it looks like. Now I will just change my label to something else, add a location. So now when I hit preview on my form, you will be able to see 2 headings. And you can add margins, you can add other spacing, you can change the color, you can add a shadow. It's really exciting when it comes to modifying the form in Caspio, because really it's hard for me to find a form on the web that you cannot replicate inside Caspio. It really is that powerful because you can add JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and at a lot of times you don't even have to do that. You can create really nice forms out of the box. Okay, now let's say we're happy with the way the form looks. We want to publish this form to the web. Let me go back to Caspio. All right, so say you're really excited about the form. You can click finish to save your changes. And here's our very first data page that we created. We can edit the form. We can preview the form once again, but if I'm ready to deploy the form, I click on this link, enable deployment status, and then Caspio gives me 4 different deployment methods, with the embed model being the most popular. All you have to do is copy this snippet of code, paste that code into your website, and you're going to be able to see that form seamlessly embed. It's just like embedding a YouTube video. Copy, paste, embed. Now, Caspio is compatible with many CMS builders out there. So if you're using Webflow, if you're using WordPress, Weebly, know that our code will work in conjunction with any of these CMS platforms that you come across. If you don't have a website, you can still deploy the form using a Caspio direct URL link. You can also use iframe and .NET for SharePoint. And that's how easy in Caspio it is to build a very simple form with just a few clicks. There's absolutely no coding unless you want to create things that are a bit more dynamic, add some styling and some additional aesthetics to your labels and headings to make things pop just a little bit more. If you're building something simple, a simple application, maybe the extent of your application is going to be 1 data page. But most applications will have a lot of workflows and will be comprised of many data pages with forms, reports, charts, calendars. And all you're doing is just embedding each one of these data pages into your own website for your end users to access, be able to edit information, submit data, view data, metrics, analytics, or anything else you decide to build via these data pages. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks so much for watching, and we hope that you'll give Caspio a try. We'll see you in the next video.